Hi, thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to provide context because, as we all know, the world is changing rather rapidly right now. Today is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Definitely the most unique one, I think, in all of our lives. This is the first of a series of podcasts we're going to do at the Public School Resource Center focused on COVID-19, the school closures, and what schools can be doing, to provide support to students and families across the state. And we chose this as our first topic because this podcast is going to focus in on what can schools do from a food and nutrition standpoint to support their students. We've got some experts here. We have Chris Bernard with Hunger Free Oklahoma, who's the executive director. And Chris is going to be here to talk about sort of lessons learned from other states, some support that they're providing to the State Department, and offer some guidance that schools can follow. And then we have Reno Public Schools. We have the esteemed Craig McVeigh, superintendent. And for those that are following on video, they are not experiencing a power outage in El Reno. We're just having trouble with the video feed there, so we'll have audio. Greg's the superintendent, and like all good administrators, he's brought on someone that knows what they're talking about. We have Brooke Robertson, who's the community outreach director, and is going to be overseeing El Reno's food program when they get back started. We're technically on spring break this week, so that the program, just like all programs are paused, but on Monday they'll be enacting a whole plan. So, any introductory comments or clarification, all before we jump right in?
Glad to be with you guys this morning, Brent.
Definitely. And I want to make sure that we provided the date at the beginning. Everything that we're going to do today, we know this is a fluid situation. So please, if you're listening to this, after March 17th, keep in context the timing of when this was recorded. And we're going to do our very best to keep on updating information as things change. But really appreciate folks taking time out of their day for you guys participating in this, and for others for listening. So Chris, When we jump in first, tell me, what are you seeing at the national level? What are other states doing, and what are things that both the state can do and both schools can do to make sure that they're ready to get food in families' hands?
I mean, so nationally, we're seeing a lot of states who are in our situation, right, where they're just starting to think about this and shut down. But we're also, where we're kind of looking for best practices, is those states that did it early and had community spread early on, and sort of how they've responded. So nationally, you've got USDA has said we're taking waivers and will sort of systematically process waivers to do exactly what you were talking about, allow schools to feed kids during unexpected closures, and to do that via the seamless summer or summer meals mechanism, right? So what a lot of school districts do in the summer to feed their kids, they can operate that during this closure. And not only that, they can do it without having the congregate meal requirement. So basically a grab and go model. So those two waivers, pretty much every state across the country is applying for. We did as well, and those have been approved. Those are sort of the priority waivers for the USDA to process. So in Oklahoma, as it stands right now, districts can fill out a relatively short application online with OSDE to say we want to serve summer meals. And that can be a district who's done it before. It can also be one who's never done it, who really says this is a unique circumstance and we're going to do it this time. And identify sites, and they'll be good to go. And you're running it. You have a breakfast and a lunch available. As of right now, one of the challenges is you can only serve one meal at a time to a kid. It's also a challenge of that kid has to be present, right? So what we're seeing across the country is schools using kind of almost a drive-through model, where they come outside of the school and families can just pull up. You look in the car, you see 3 kids, you give 3 meals. Something that we really think is a best practice that we see in states like California, Wisconsin, and Indiana are the 3 that I'm really aware of, is a model where you can give more than 1 meal to a kid at a time. Because if we're listening to what our president says and what everyone else says, right, the goal is to minimize contact. Yep. And so if we could give a breakfast and a lunch to each kid who comes through, or even more than that. Some districts are giving like 5 meals at a time to cover a whole week. Those places have other challenges like snow and other things that make transportation harder. But especially if you're thinking about, if your district's in an area where your kids travel far distances already to get to your school, that's something we'd really like to see in place. It's a waiver our State Department hasn't asked for yet, but I think as they hear the need, so far they've been very responsive. So for example, they only filed 4 waivers to start with. 2 are still pending, which one would be to waive the low income requirement for districts. So right now, districts that have more than 50% free and reduced lunch can use this model. If you're under 50%, you have some challenges there because you can't just feed universally. They've asked to waive that, and USDA is still weighing it. They've also asked to waive the meal plan when necessary because purchasing may become a problem, right? You may not be able to get all the supplies to meet the meal plan. We're waiting on that. But Monday, they filed a waiver to allow CACFP places to waive congregate feeding and enrichment. So that's your after-school feeding that usually requires kids to be in place and have an enrichment activity.
So CACFP stands for?
It's Child and Adult Food Care Program. It's referred to as after-school meals a lot of the time, okay. Right? So, some school districts use it. YMCA's, the food banks are big sponsors there. And so by getting that waiver, you can potentially set up a system where kids could be getting 3 meals a day, which would be great.
Okay. Hey, you got lots of information here. Let's go back to a couple of things you said. So one, if schools don't have, we have El Reno here who has an after school program, who has a summer program. They don't have that, they can apply, and they've got to go to the State Department website. And Chris, if you can, and I've got a note here as well, if you can send us a link, we will put this up. We have a COVID-19 resource page for schools, so we will put a link up on our page right to that so that they.
Yeah, we'll send you a link. It's called the CARS portal, CARS. And even if you have done a summer meal program in the past, you still have to fill out that application because we're in 2020 now.
Okay.
But it's a relatively short application for school districts. That's not as true for community-based organizations.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned this federal waiver for needing, so essentially the problem is right now you're only supposed to give 1 meal at a time, and if you don't want people getting together a lot, then why don't we give them a couple meals at a time, right? If you give them breakfast, lunch, and maybe school snack all at the same time.
Yeah.
So that technically requires a federal waiver. So those that know me know that I'm not a real big fan of rules. I am also a federal employee, so I understand federal rules. I'm just going to say this, and then my lawyer will yell at me later on. Look, guys, we're in a federal state of emergency. When in doubt, common sense is a pretty good tool. And maybe just pause and ask El Reno, how are you guys trying to tackle this issue right now about getting multiple meals to families at the same time?
Brent, we're going to, and Brooke can back me up on this. We're going to do 2 meals at a time, maybe 3. And then we're going to beg for forgiveness later. But what we plan on doing Monday is we're going to be at our sites from 9 to 11. We also have received a waiver from OSDE in the past to run our food truck throughout the community, and so that typically we hit about 3 or 4 parks with the setup in the summertime, and we plan on doing that again. And we're asking OSDE to back us on that, and we've applied for our waiver already. So the plan for us is to fully staff and prepare our grab and go stuff for 3 meals a day, the breakfast, the lunch, the after school snack, bag those up. We'll do a drive-by delivery at our sites, and then we'll run our food truck and trailer out to the remote locations. And again, we think that we're going to get the okay on that. We have been told by OSD CNP that whatever we did last summer, we think we'll get again. So we're just going to go, we'll kind of throw the dice at the first part and then hope for the Department of Agriculture to get on board later.
Great. And Craig, if you can get a little closer to the mic, you're a little quiet, which I know is not you, it's the microphone. So
it's certainly not me, Brent. I'll try to speak up here, and then
that's good. That's better. Yeah, that sounds better. I think, look, we don't want to be, I'm not advocating a lawless state here, but it doesn't make any sense to me why we would want to encourage people to come 3 times to a physical location. That's tripling. I'm sure there's even more exponential math. That's tripling the opportunities for people to transmit viruses. So it just makes a lot of sense that schools would go ahead. And I know that the State Department, I've been really impressed with how they're communicating, how they're trying to move. This is obviously a fluid situation. So I think formally that guidance will get put in place. But, in lacking clear guidance, I think we can use some common sense measures. I know that common sense logic can be a dangerous thing, especially when dealing with federal rules. But I think in this case, that makes a lot of sense.
So I have to, because I'm on your podcast, say we can't encourage that, right? Our mission is to feed kids, but what I don't want to tell people is go ahead and do it, because you are risking, and I appreciate that El Reno's willing to take the risk that you won't get reimbursed, right? You'll get an audit finding. But I do think USDA, it's not that they don't want to approve these things, it's that they, like everyone else, are overwhelmed and they're prioritizing based on category. Yep. So I do think you're right, Brent. A lot of things will get approved down the line that right now are pending.
Yep. No, and I think we've got to push as hard as we can to get regulations in place. But let's do what we can, I think, in this instance at least.
Chris, let me go ahead and say this in here. Our sites are open from 9 to 11. So if we did breakfast at 9 and lunch at 11, that would technically be 2 time slots, and
yep.
And we do that normally. So we're not really breaking the rules there. I just want to be clear on that. We're going to feed kids, and in case there are any attorneys listening to this comment or anyone with USDA, I will deny that I ever said anything about breaking the rules.
We're not recording this or anything, so. I think the feds are knocking at my door. I'll be right back. But no,
and the other thing is that I will do time in jail over feeding kids and taking care of them. I'm glad to do that, and I just don't think I'm gonna go there. But I do want you to know that we're not purposely breaking the rules. We are purposely trying to find a way around the rules.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's why we have declared states of emergency, both at the state and federal level. We recognize that in these heightened times that the rules that we have in place don't always fit. And I'm quite confident that at all levels, people get the need to put, to correct the rules, get these waivers in place. But let's do what we can to make sure that we're, being as smart as we can as well. So.
Yeah.
Cool. So we know that there's the waiver that the schools need to fill out at the state level. What are other things that, and I'll ask this up to everyone on the call. Maybe even if we could hear from Brooke, like if I'm at a school that, especially we've got a lot of small rural schools around the state, but really any school that maybe hasn't had a summer feeding program, doesn't have these things in place. What are some of the things that they should keep in mind as they're making plans next week to feed their kids?
Brent, we have great partners. Can you hear me? Am I loud enough?
Yep.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. We have great partners and partnerships in El Reno, and so I would encourage those rural communities to look at that. Those obviously can be businesses, but also individuals. I mean, we have people right now coming out of the woodwork in both those areas saying, we will donate some crackers. We will donate, we will come help. Well, of course, we don't want a lot of people there, but if they want to go grab me some peanut butter crackers and I can just use that in my backpack, food backpack, distribution, then by all means, absolutely. In times like these, people want to help and they don't always know what they can do. So, that's fairly simple. So things like that, I would encourage. We're fortunate here that I've been doing this for about 15 years. So we have some amazing partnerships that we can go to.
Brooke mentioned the food pantry too.
Oh, and we have a food pantry. That's right. You just kind of all runs together. We do have a food pantry at one of our sites, at our junior high site. And so that will be there. We don't know what that's going to look like yet for people to drop donations off that, as well as where we will bag up bags, because my thoughts, along with our child nutrition director, is to on Fridays hand out food backpacks to help through the weekend, much like the backpack program now that's in schools. So.
Yeah.
One thing I want to reiterate, the Resource Center is, we're a membership organization. We got, 250 members right now. I don't care. If you're a public school and you need help, you give us a call. I'll put my cell phone here, but it's 405-820-3619. I can assure you that I don't know anything, but that I know smart people, and that we will work. We're working with folks like Hunger Free. We'll be working with schools like Reno that have robust programs, and we'll get you whatever information you need. So if you're sitting here listening to this podcast going, I don't know where to start, well, the first thing you can do is call me, and we'll do everything we can to get good information out.
Hey, Brent and Chris, let me run this by you too. Brooke and I were talking about this earlier. In Canadian County, we have the dependent schools and some of the rural schools that have not done summer feeding before.
Yeah.
However, in our program, it's a walk up, under 18. We tally. We don't get a name, so we know that in the past at the swimming pool and our parks, we're feeding those kids too.
Yeah.
So we're going to be meeting with Canadian County rural superintendents this afternoon, and we'll just tell them, if you're not able to do this, your kids are on our tally already. We've been for last couple of years. You walk up, we tally you. You say you're under 18, and you get the same as any treatment as any kid in El Reno.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You can serve any kid, and thinking about those partnerships, right? Who, if they're rural school districts, they could even come pick up a group of meals as long as you've trained them on how to tally and keep temperature right, and they can take it back to their communities and tally that up, and you can collect that as long as you've claimed that delivery site, which they're being really flexible on. Metropolitan areas are talking about stopping at each stop on bus routes because they know those kids' parents don't normally take them to school, so they're anticipating they wouldn't be able to get to the schools. I think thinking creatively like that, also think about other resources. So they talked about the pantries, and we're working on building a website that's going to hopefully collect information from all over the state about what other resources are there, and we'll be placing the map of all the meal sites in the state on our mealsforkidsok.org, which we built for summer meals a couple of years ago. There's also going to be new resources. So this response bill in DC that's hopefully going to pass the Senate either today or tomorrow has other supports for families, because a lot of these folks who are hourly workers are going to see their hours cut, right? If they're working in oil fields or restaurants or bars, in businesses that are shutting down so they don't need to be cleaned. So the parents are going to be struggling too. So thinking about, we're hoping to put kind of a brief resource page together that talks about emergency SNAP eligibility and WIC eligibility. But there's also this piece that's really cool for maybe districts that won't have a partner district that can get meals to them, called pandemic EBT. And what it says is if a school's closed for more than 5 days, DHS can issue an EBT card just like a SNAP or food stamp card that's worth the value of the meals that kid has missed. I can't guarantee you our DHS will implement that, but if it passes, I would encourage districts to voice their support for that option.
Amen.
And think about how they can make that connection. So even if we're going to try and produce a flyer. Like you said, Brent, things are changing so fast, it's hard to print something, but once a little more clear, flyers that districts could just pull off our website that educate families about all the different resources there to support them, that they can just staple to a brown bag lunch or whatever it is, because those parents are also going to need access to nutrition. And thinking about that with your partner restaurants and other things, I think it's helpful too.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, these are the things when the chips are down, like community members come together, right? And I think we've got, plenty of examples of that here in Oklahoma. We call it the Oklahoma Standard. The hard part is, the standard way of doing that is you physically come together. So it's going to be a little bit different. I think it makes a lot of sense to be thinking about all of the resources. And I know, especially in rural Oklahoma, people want to pitch in, right? So it's that balance of keeping people safe, relying on resources, and making sure that we're adhering to the rules whenever possible.
You mentioned rural schools, but I also know that there's a huge effort in the urban areas of Oklahoma City. A couple of school superintendents over there, Millwood, City Woods. I know that they're really depending on their ministerial alliance. We had that conversation before also, and that's a huge partner as well.
Yeah. Now talk about your guys' food truck, and like, is this something that if a school doesn't have it in place, could they do something similar? Could they use a bus? I mean, is that an option?
Yeah, I think they could, and I'm going to turn this over to Brooke because Brooke invented our food truck about 5 years ago, and she's the one who put that whole deal together. So this is kind of her baby, Brooke.
Well, not by myself, with my people. My people aren't here, so I'm going to do the best I can. Ours, we use a van that we call Fast Tracks, and so it's got the Indian Headland emblem logo on the side, and it says Fast Tracks on the bottom. So when you see that van coming, it's a white van with the blue lettering. Then you know that's the food truck.
It's like the ice cream truck.
Yeah.
That plays music and they have a fun time with it.
It's a lot of fun. So essentially, and then we have a big ice chest. We also last year or 2 years ago added heating blankets, if you will, that go in these chests. So we are now able to do warm and cold food alike. And this year we actually added a second van to our fleet. So we're pretty excited about that. So, I mean, we just took a van, but you could use, anything.
Yeah, you could do it from a bus, I think.
We're just, set up already with the hot cold, but that's certainly not, a necessity. Then we did a food trailer that was made for us a few years back that we actually cook, just like you're cooking out hamburgers and hot dogs. It actually is equipped to do all of that. So we will go ahead.
Yeah, OCI built that for us 2 or 3 years ago. Our food trailer, it has hot and cold water. I mean, it's completely sanitation minded, and it's think tailgate on steroids for our trailer.
For the schools that just want to get food out, if you wanted to just commandeer a vehicle and put, you mostly doing box food? What are you doing? Are you doing coolers? What are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think you can you do hot food, or you probably can't do that?
No. We could do hot food from our food trailer, but it would be site-based only.
Okay.
Yeah. Logistically, it doesn't make sense to do hot meals for this grab and go model, right? Because you don't want to be at risk of violating health code during all this stuff too. So
we got a lot of peanut butter and jelly out there, Brent. I mean, we do a lot with peanut butter. We do a lot with almond butter. We spread that around a little bit.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
That peanut butter and jelly is a pretty big part of the Bushy family social distancing plan, I can assure you.
How's your daughter, by the way?
Oh, thanks for asking. I just got word right before the call that she's coming home. My daughter's been was in the hospital with pneumonia. So.
Oh, wow.
Not COVID-19 related. She had the flu and it just turned into pneumonia, and we've had a fun time at Children's Hospital. So
I'm glad she's coming home, Brent.
Thank you. We're very happy, and please say a prayer for those hospital folks. It's they're preparing for wartime right now. So
that's another good point, that if school districts want to think about it, I know TPS is mindful that now that they're shut down, all these first responders whose kids would normally be at school are not.
Right.
They're trying to engage community partners to think about what childcare can look like for those families, because we need them out there working during the crisis. So, not to make things even more complicated for the districts, but if that's a reality of what will happen as spring break ends and we go back to normal operation. So
yeah, I was talking with hospital staff about that yesterday as the school closure was announced, and what their plans were going to be as nurses. So it's a tough situation. We're going to have to rely on each other. Okay, what are we forgetting? What are other things that schools can do to make sure that they're getting food out to kids?
So I would say something that I know from our experience in the walkout that you're going to see is, one, don't think that the first or second day of doing this is indicative of what it will look like further down the road. Demand will not spike at the beginning. it will trickle in and then get big after about a week. So don't change your plans just because you're seeing low turnout on the front end. I would definitely say that. I also think, it's a fluid situation. So planning for, you're testing sites, and if those sites don't work, you might have to move. And so thinking about that ahead of time.
We've done that as well. We found that as well.
Yeah. And really, I shouldn't even be talking. You all run a school district, more than I do. So I'll let you all go. And if I think of anything insightful that'll make me sound smart at the end, I'll talk again.
No, you're fine. Of course, social media. We have a great Facebook page, a great website, great team that, monitors and runs that. And so, like you said, though, it's fluid, and so it's changing all the time. So you just have to be flexible with that.
And I think just, some of the criticism that we have taken in the past, we've sort of, and I hate to say that we ignored it, because we don't ignore the criticism, but we take that criticism and we try to get better from it. And sometimes that means that if you had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich one day and the jelly wasn't on there and all you got was peanut butter, well, okay, sorry about that, but that's just that's part of the process, especially like you said, Chris, in the walkout and moving forward. We learned a lot of lessons the first summer, and we revisited that the next summer, and last year we served 20,000 meals in June and July, and I don't think, and Brooke's sitting here, she would have taken the complaints. We just didn't get a lot of complaints last year. No. The complaints we have more now are that we're a school and we should be worried about teaching and not feeding kids, and we've just we've taken that criticism and thrown it back at people, and like I said, I'll take the criticism for feeding kids. If that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do, and basically screw them.
Yeah. And I think, what I read somewhere this morning, just kind of catching up, situations like this bring out both the best and the worst in us, right?
Yeah, sure.
So as leaders, our job is to appeal to the best. And then, sometimes we're just going to have to let some of that, look, we're also, a lot of that worst is just fear and anxiety. So we recognize where it's coming from, and then we keep on moving forward.
Yeah, I do think that's important, is to be patient with the people you're serving, right? As people become more desperate if they're not getting their normal work. We have seen at sites before where parents don't understand why they can't have a meal too, and will get upset. And just kind of having your frontline staff ready to be understanding in that and to practice patience, I think can go a long way for the mental health of the frontline workers, but also for the community to understand that they're appreciated and they're heard, which is going to end up getting you higher participation anyway.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what our goal is, get food out to kids.
Our kids really show up for this, y'all. I mean, they really do. They expect that truck to come around. They follow it on their bicycle to the stop, and it really has been, I don't want to say, I don't want to get too religious on here, but it's been a God thing for me that we threw this idea Brooke had about, the ice cream truck being the food truck, and it's just gone over really well. They expect it and they show up, and the kids just absolutely have a grin on their face when they've chased down the truck and they stop and they go up there and get their grab and go. It's just been really successful for us, and especially in the times of crisis. We've had two major tornado hits in the time that we've been able to deliver food, and it's just it's families that are desperate, that are reaching out, and they need some help, and we've been able, through what Brooke has done, really to get people bottled water, food, whatever. I mean, we've been able to do that. So
I think that is a great point too. If there are other community partners who want to serve, coordinating with them to be in the same place, so these families only, if we're minimizing contact, right? So they only have to, it's like a one-stop shop, the best you can be a great way to plan too, if you can get that community coordination. And not accepting barriers and just dealing with them or quitting because you think they're too hard. There are folks who've learned how to get around those barriers. There are organizations like mine and like OPSRC who literally our entire job is how to get around, over, break down barriers, right? So rather than giving up, reaching out, I think is also really important.
Yeah, I think that's critical. Is look, we don't, just what we've said a couple times already. We don't want to encourage people to be breaking rules, but like, let's focus on the mission and then let's figure out how to get it done. So
yeah.
Yeah, Brooke mentioned just now that we have some really partners that we absolutely reach out to, Blessing Baskets, the Lord's Harvest, the Ashbrook Foundation locally here, the Ministerial Alliance. Everyone is tuned in to what we need, and they do reach out to us quite often. So, I would just urge everyone who has a contact, reach out and see what the possibilities might be.
Yeah.
That's great.
And any of those schools, Brent, can call us. I know Craig's available. If people have questions, we're more than happy to help as much as we can.
I'm going to give them Brooke's cell phone number. I hope you guys know that.
It's fine.
Yeah, I'm just going to put out there, look, opsrc.net's our page has right on the front. We have a banner there for COVID-19. Chris, what's your website?
So it's hungerfreeok.org, and by this Friday, the Friday before the spring break is over, we hope to have a resource page there that we're both collecting information from people, but also trying to educate them about everything that's out there. So,
yep. And my cell is 405-820-3619. Call
and my cell phone is on our website also.
Okay, fantastic. So,
Brent, my cell phone is 405-650-8917. Anyone can call me anytime.
Well, now that everyone's just giving it out, so mine is 918-640-0693.
Cool.
And mine is 405-250-3949.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We all got to pitch in here, I think, is the key message. And I appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedules today and be willing to help as we move forward. It's going to be a long few days here, weeks and months probably. So I want to thank you again, and I look forward. I'm sure we'll be in communication here as the days go forward.
Nice to meet you, Chris, and thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, you should probably expect a call from one of my staff, because I'm going to tell them you're doing great stuff.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Brent.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.